We landed around noonday on February 8th, 2016. I was just beginning a 2 year mission trip for my church, and for the next 2 years would be living in Argentina. I left the cold northern hemisphere and realized as the Argentine sun beat down on me that I was in for quite the experience. I also realized that culture changes dramatically between one country and another, as I saw women breastfeeding in public, dogs running freely in the airport and in the supermarkets, and I saw people drinking a certain type of drink that was called mate, and was forced to try it and later on learn to love it. My greatest hardship, however, was my untrained ear trying to understand Castellano, which is the form of Spanish spoken in Argentina. Have you ever wondered what it's like to live outside of the United States? Have you ever been interested in knowing more about second and third world countries? I wish to inform you today about Argentine culture, government, and economy, the difficulties of living in a foreign country and the beauties of it, as well as remind you of the great blessings that we have as Americans. My first idea would be to help you to understand foreign politics. How many of you have felt that politicians are untrustworthy? I will begin by explaining why we may be correct, but we should consider ourselves lucky to have the politicians that we have. We have had a few scandals and mishaps in our government's history, from Richard Nixon and the Watergate scandal to John F. Kennedy and the rumors of an affair. But we as Americans need to understand that we are protected and blessed from much worse, and I will explain why. Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner was president of Argentina when I showed up. She finished her term right before I showed up. She finished in 2015. She, among many presidents of Argentina and many presidents of almost all South American countries, has been accused of stealing billions of dollars and storing the money in offshore accounts. On one certain scandal involving the Catholic Church, she was accused of helping an ex-minister steal just under $9 million. This was not the only accusation. In fact, for my whole 2 year experience, I continued hearing more and more stories and saw the constant distrust in the eyes of the Argentine people. There are many more examples of fraud in government, but I will give you a personal example. As a missionary, we work with certain people who are trying to change their lives, become better, and we help them to set goals and accomplish those goals. I knew a man who was accepting our visits and receiving our teachings, and later on he told us that his brother had been taken to prison for selling and buying drugs. He told us that his brother never had involved himself in that kind of a life, and said that all his brother did was make a police officer angry, and they came in and took him, they cuffed him and took him to prison. He was afraid the same would happen to him. A couple of weeks later, we went to the house, and his wife and children were outside, and so were the police, and he was cuffed and being taken outside. His wife told us that the police came in without any warning, cuffed him, and took him away. He could have been lying to us. It is not unlikely. However, I believed him because of the countless number of stories I had heard as I worked in the streets of Argentina. I realized that the government had more power than it should have, and the people truly had little say as to what happened to them. I shared a personal experience that was mostly sad and helps to give an understanding of government and the lack of trust that people have in it. However, Argentine life was not unenjoyable. My second point that I would like to share with you is about the culture. The country has a European influence, and therefore has many beautiful buildings and all types of art. A few of my favorite traditions were the asado and the mate. The asado is a classic Argentine meal that has certain cuts of cow, slow cooked over coals, with bread and usually a salad. It is a Sunday meal, and most of the country will be eating an asado on Sunday. on Sunday afternoon as a family. Mate is a drink made of herbs that is shared in one cup and passed around a group of people. It can be drunk alone, but usually if there's a mate, there are many people waiting to drink it and conversing with each other. Mate and asado bring people together, and especially families. And that is something that I loved about Argentina. Another great part of the Argentine culture is called la siesta. It is basically a nap time for adults. Each day, the country closes down for a few hours during the hot season. The stores close down, the people go home, and it is quiet and calm as the sun beats down on the streets. As a missionary, it was not very effective to work in the streets during this time. But if I were a normal resident, I would have very much enjoyed the siesta. In the hotter regions, the siesta could be up to 6 hours long. When I lived in the desert of La Rioja, the stores would be opened up around 8 in the morning, and they would close at noon. Then would reopen at 6, and they would close again at 11. Those were the normal working hours. Although I very much enjoyed this siesta, I found that it created a bit of a lazy feel to the working life. And a lot of times people open up late or reopen late, or even sometimes didn't even show up after la siesta because they were still in bed. When I returned home after 2 years, I also realized that we have a middle class that works. And while I was in Argentina, I had forgotten about that middle class. The poor and the rich are the two economic groups of the country, leaving almost nothing of a middle class. I saw neighborhoods of poor and rich living together, and to my surprise, the rich were actually the bad neighbors, throwing their trash next door, putting up electric fences and walls between them and their neighbors. I even saw the rich throw their deceased pets into their poorer neighbors' yards. Of course, there was no justice for the poor, and sadly, I saw many of them cleaning up the mess and continuing to work and to suffer without a fight. The Argentine culture is rich and fun. It is imperfect but beautiful. I hope to return someday soon. However, I wouldn't choose a different country to live in than the United States, where I have blessings and opportunities. Next time you go to count your many blessings, remember Argentina and its people.